But I'm here wearing the Chamber of Commerce hat, and Bill's right there. Bill and I was like maybe a week in the job, and Bill called me and said, I've got 50 people coming from Santa Cruz. I'm like, I don't even know where the bathrooms are at the Chamber, but I'm so glad to have you here, and Bill and I got to meet at a WACE conference. And this is, we welcome you. This is, I know from personal experience, going and visiting other communities is such a great way to understand and learn, okay, we don't want to do that ever again. But really, hopefully you learn a lot just from the experience. What I'm going to talk to you about is, as my understanding is that you folks are interested in how do you develop the innovative entrepreneurial culture, better coordination between the different organizations, the university, the municipality, and the business community. So I'm going to use the perspective, I call it the feeder perspective, and you'll get a sense of why I call it that. So I'll ask, and the fonts are all screwed up, so if it starts to come together, apologize. Has anybody read Brad Feld's book, The Startup Community? Okay, good. Okay, well, a few of you. So it's interesting. Brad Feld, for those who don't know him, he's another Brad. I know you met with Brad Bernthal. He is a leader in the innovation community, an investor in a lot of startups, and known nationally for his work in that area, and just a great thought leader. And he's written a whole series of books, but Startup Communities I highly recommend. And it, to some extent, it reads like a menu. But why? Because he really walks through what are the key elements to success to build an entrepreneurial, innovative community. And he starts essentially by saying that in order to be successful, you have to let the entrepreneurs lead. Those are the people who run and are starting the startup industry. Those who are the ones who have the businesses that we are trying to support. And in somewhat pejoratively, it feels like everybody else is a feeder. So government's a feeder, the Chamber of Commerce are a feeder, economic development agencies. But what he's really getting at is we're the support network for these entrepreneurs. We really shouldn't lead the effort. We shouldn't start whole programs and think that then the entrepreneurs will follow. Instead, you need to talk to the entrepreneurs and say, what do you need to be successful? So he characterized it essentially saying, listen, you shouldn't be saying, what's in it for me? How can I, get something out of these folks? You really should be asking them, what do you need to be successful? How can I support you? And that's the perspective that I've taken. In fact, literally, I got the job about a week into it, and I emailed Brad and I said, okay, I got the job, now what can I do? And we've had some great conversations, and it led to, for me, categorizing the work that I want to do to help lift our innovative culture into 5 different areas. And you see them here, I'll walk through them in more detail. The first thing is building the innovation network. So what Brad points out in his book is you tend to, and maybe this is similar for your community, have silos. So we have a number of different, we call them business clusters, where we're really strong in certain areas of innovation. So the outdoor industry, the natural products industry, the tech industry, even the university itself is somewhat of a silo, as I think want to be sometimes. The idea is we as a business community entity and the Chamber of Commerce, we're in touch with all of these different business organizations, these different clusters. We are best equipped to help bring them together. We need to bring them together. Why? We want to develop mentoring programs. We want to help facilitate that transfer of information from the university, be it the students or the faculty who have creative concepts, or then also back to them to help them think about how do they develop their own ideas. We want to have the different industries learn from each other. So we are in a position to help support that. That's something that our chamber is going to be working to develop. The second thing is, and I put my lovely mug there because this is my line, but it's so often the business community is seen as the other. It's seen as sort of a separate organism that kind of is opposed to everything else all the other citizens care about, like, lightness and greatness and environmental issues. No, the business community in our community, and I imagine it's similar in Santa Cruz, is the community. So everybody has some sort of interest and is a part of the business culture, but they also share the same values of the community. They want to have the support for the social and cultural assets. They want to support the environment, but the business community does also have a perspective on, well, what do we need in order to keep generating the economic benefits that support all of the assets of a community. So we are going to speak as a chamber loudly on behalf of those interests, but it's going to be in coordination with all of our other partners in the community. And I say, we want to be the community of how, not the community of no. We're not going to be the business community saying, hell no, taxes, or all that. No, we're about solving real problems and challenges, be it transportation, environmental issues, health and human service issues. We want to be constructive players. So that's the attitude that we're going to take to our advocacy on behalf of business interests. We're also going to be a promoter of our local innovation culture. What does that mean? Well, too often Boulder can be very focused on what's going on here, and that the folks who are actually doing the innovation don't have the capacity to reach out and explain to a global audience what is so great that's going on here. Well, why is that important? I use this Finish Line as an example. Finish Line is like Foot Locker. I actually didn't really know Finish Line myself. They're a retail outlet primarily. Most people know them as selling footwear. But right here in Boulder, you might not, I didn't know it, I don't know if any of the mayor and Patrick know it. They have their internet sales force here, and that is by far and away the highest yielding grossing element of this national chain of footwear stores. And it's growing exponentially, and so I talked to the gentleman who runs that company. They're dying to get programmers here. They have such a difficult time attracting the talent to come to Boulder. Why is that? Because so much of the talent at the universities, let's say on the coast, are thinking, gee, if I take that job in Boulder and it doesn't work out, what the heck am I going to do? I'm going to have to move back to Palo Alto or wherever. But that's not true, and we need to be clear and broadcast that no, if it doesn't work out at Finish Line, you can move here, and there's about 50 other companies that would probably use your talent as well. So there's a lot of reasons we want to be the promoters of what's going on in this community from an innovation standpoint. Then we also have the issue of, and they call it, what is a flyover state? We are the classic flyover state because you think about everything in the middle between the coasts. So you guys have a little advantage on us there. And how does that play out? Well, they say that I think 85% of venture capital funding happens within 50 miles of where the VCs live. Now, why is that? Because you go to cocktail parties, you drive around town, you meet people who are doing innovative things, you trust them, you invest in them. So we don't have that kind of resource, those kinds of dollars invested in our community. We're a relatively small community. Denver area is relatively small. So we need to do a better job of figuring out how to attract them here so that a VC would say, hey, I hear about a natural products company in the Boulder area. I'm thinking about investing with them, but boy, is it worth it to make the trip? Well, hell yeah, it is worth it because we got not just one natural products company, we got hundreds of them. And we will set up and organize opportunities for you to meet with them. Think about investing your dollars here in Boulder, a community that has a great deal of innovation going on here. And then finally, I'll break it down in two ways, and I apologize again for the graphics. We're calling it our innovation infrastructure. So there's two areas here. One is the notion of a business innovation office center. So right now, if you went to the Boulder Chamber of Commerce, I always say it's like a great trip back to the 1950s, like most chambers, somewhat old, sort of stagnant. We are very isolated, and yet at the same time, we have so many different industry associations that are thriving, like a Naturally Boulder is the representative of the natural products industry, like the Boulder Independent Business Alliance, representing a lot of the independent businesses in our community. And if we really want to represent all of that business community, we need to work more closely with them. So we can't be this isolated 1950s chamber. We need to have a facility where we can bring all the business interests together, bump into each other, have what's called, as Tom Check, who is a Nobel Prize winner, lives in our community, works at the University of Colorado, he calls them creative collisions. You know, I can't afford the time to call somebody and you know, the head of Naturally Boulder and say, I'm going to meet you in a month. No, I want to run into them on a daily basis, find out what their needs are to advance their industry's issues and needs, and work together to make that happen. So we want to create that kind of a facility.